All right, guys, welcome back. This is Off the Edge. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. Joining me, as always, is my partner in crime over there, former NFL
Yes,
linebacker
sir.
Cameron Lynch. And we are here to talk about the NFL playoffs, playoff picture, playoff bracket, and we'll have our own predictions. We're going to be talking about some key games. You can follow me on social at JK Bogan. You can follow Cam at Cameron Lynch 50. So let's get this thing started. Cam,
Yeah.
right off the rip, the NFL playoff picture. In the NFC, we got the Philadelphia Eagles. They have that first round bye locked up right now. But this weekend, and we'll get into it a little bit, but this weekend, there's some massive games, and that one, Fox was not going to let that go to prime time. I can tell you that right now. They
Biggest
were
game of
not
the
going to let
year.
that get flexed out. So Eagles,
Yeah.
49ers, I mean, that has some massive playoff implications. That'll be in Philly on Fox at 4:25 p.m. Eastern time this week. The 49ers are actually 3-point favorites on the road. So
Oh,
that's some
NFC
disrespect
Championship
by
game.
Vegas.
Yeah, I think a
Yeah,
little
I
preview of the
mean,
NFC Championship game. That looks good, man. I'm looking forward to it. Christian McCaffrey, he got bruised up last week, so I think this week he might get bruised up again, finding the end zone. So I'm looking forward to seeing that matchup, Jalen Hurts and that defensive line, Jake. The Eagles' defensive line. Which defensive line is going to come out more dominant? That's going to be my question for this weekend.
yeah, it should be fascinating, to watch that game, of course. And then AFC side, first round bye right now are the 9-3 Ravens, who are actually on a bye themselves this week. So no
I
play
got them in the Super
there.
Bowl, Jake. I got them in the Super
I do
Bowl. I
too.
got the Ravens. Yeah.
I do too. I know we're jumping the gun there, but yeah, I think the Ravens are the team to beat right now, and they will be getting Mark Andrews back, I believe. I think it was if they make a big run in the playoffs, they'd get him back by I think the AFC title game. Regardless, I think the Ravens are good enough to win without Mark Andrews. I mean, I think Isaiah
Yeah.
Likely, and Charlie Kohler are capable tight ends, and I think Lamar Jackson in his playoff script, and you look at the run game the way it's been going, with Keaton Mitchell finding him UDF out of East Carolina. And then you have Gus Edwards, who's been just automatic from the goal line. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, I
Odell's
agree with
back.
you there. Yeah. I mean, as a matter of
Yeah.
fact, I'll just say this. I think both first round buys right now, the Ravens and the Eagles, I think they're playing each other in the Super Bowl. But anyway,
Yeah.
the seeds for 2 and 7. So in the AFC right now, we have the Chiefs at the number 2 seed. They would take on, if the season ends today, the 7th seeded Colts. I do expect both of those teams to make the playoffs, and that will be in my prediction that we get to later on the show. And then on the other side of things, the NFC, the 2-seeded 49ers taking on the 7th-seeded Vikings. I think one team is going to stay in the playoffs. I don't have the Vikings sticking around. I think this is, I hate to say it, but I think this is kind of the beginning of a big time fall for the Vikings. They had to get that win in Denver. They absolutely had to protect their home field against their rival Chicago Bears. To lose that game, that was brutal. And I mean, now they've gone from 6-4 to 6-6. They got to keep pace. All of a sudden, the NFC is starting to get a little competitive here down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, Jake, Josh Dobbs, he turned the football over, I think, 4 times that game. And it was back and forth. Justin Fields turned the ball over like 3 times. There was fumbles, there was interceptions, there was a lot of back and forth. But after watching that game, I did see that the Vikings may not deserve that spot, right? You talk about the Packers, Jordan Love, the way he's playing football. I mean, they talked about his numbers when he's starting his career in Aaron Rodgers. They're looking kind of similar, right? That spooky type of graphic. And we don't want to jump the gun on Jordan Love, but he's looking like the quarterback that the Packers wanted him to be. So, Jake, I like the Packers moving there in that spot, or the Rams as well, right? There's a chance to slide into these playoffs, and so I like those 2 teams. But the Vikings, I don't know if they make the cut, my man. I don't know if they make it.
I don't know either. Hopefully, Vikings fans don't hate us too much for saying that. NFC will stick here. Seated 3rd, we have the Detroit Lions, who are trying to avenge. Well, they can't do it this week, but they're trying to move past that Thanksgiving catastrophe there, which
Too
they
much
ended up
turkey.
only
Too much
losing.
turkey.
Yeah, they only ended up losing by a touchdown, but it felt like a lot worse. So they're going to try to get back on the high side there this week. They got the Saints, That's an interesting game because they are back on the road. The Saints right now need this win as much as anybody. They're 5-6. They just lost the head-to-head tiebreaker for the time being to the Atlanta Falcons, who now just take over the 4th seed. But that's going to be a huge matchup. And then right now, as the NFC playoffs stand, the Seahawks have the 6th seed. They're 6-5. They got a massive, massive game that is really going to potentially decide a lot of what happens in the NFC. If Seattle wins this game against the Dallas Cowboys tonight, Cam, they move to 7-5. They do have the Eagles next week, but the schedule seems to lighten the load a little bit for them. After getting through this murder's row, they're going to have to win this game, and they might have to win against the Eagles. Row. It's pretty much what it is. But they've put themselves in a bad spot here, Cam, because they've lost 2 straight. They were blown out by the 49ers. They lost to the Rams. That's 2 to the Rams. So the Rams would have that tiebreaker. Seattle's, they need to win tonight. And if they don't, I don't really see them sticking in this playoff picture. I think them and the Vikings are starting to kind of fall off a little bit here.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. The Seattle Seahawks, I got the Rams. So we got the Seattle Seahawks and Minnesota Vikings. I got the Rams and the Packers moving up over them. New Orleans as well. I got the Falcons edging them out when it comes to the playoffs, Jake. The reason why I have the Falcons edging out the Saints, right? You think about just the energy that the Falcons are bringing. Ludacris came to the stadium, right? Jameis Winston was singing Ludacris's songs during the game. And then really, Jake, I think just the X factor that the Falcons have over the Saints and just that division. Younghoe Koo, the kicker, right? I think I saw a clip last night playing against the Buccaneers of that walk-off kick he had to win the game, and he flips off his helmet, right, and just walks to the sideline like, yeah, I'm the man. So I do think, Jake, that the Falcons are going to figure a way to sneak into the playoffs, right, and edge out the Saints. Matthew Bergeron, really quick, I got to talk about my Syracuse guy, Jake, but my man is run blocking really daggone well, right? Out of all the rookie offensive linemen, he's doing a good job. Bijan Robinson is running the football better than we know. And just their running game, Jake, we know they have a 1-2 punch back there. And so I think that team is really equipped. But the Seahawks, like you said, take the 2 L's to the Rams. I don't know if you'll be able to dance in the playoffs if you're taking an L to the Rams, who have struggled, Jake, right? We were 3-6 at one point. Now we've jumped up in the record. So Seattle Seahawks and Minnesota Vikings, I think you all are out. And I do know that the Falcons and the Rams have a chance to sneak in there as well.
Yeah, I like the Rams and Packers. I actually like the Saints over the Falcons, which you have. But we'll get into that. I'm going to list off here the 3rd seed in the AFC, the Jaguars, taking on the Browns at the season ended today. It all depends on this week, I think, for the Browns. They have an opportunity to make the playoffs, but I think they have to, hold face. They have to beat the Rams. It is going to get difficult. That game against the Broncos was not good. Yeah, it could be Joe Flacco, could be Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the rookie 5th rounder out of UCLA. But, either way, it's not going to be easy. This team has to learn how to win on the road. They haven't really done that this year. They've been a great home team, but they have to win on the road. And so, when you look at
quarterback healthy,
yeah,
the 4th
big
one,
time.
So.
Well, I think last week against the Broncos was also kind of a sign. I mean, this is when, think about it, we're now week 13. This is when teams are going to start to fall off or start to rise to the occasion. And I think Kevin Stefanski's squad is going to have to really step up this week against a Rams team that's riding their first 2-game winning streak of the year. If they cannot win that game at SoFi Stadium, then it could get ugly. I mean, they're at 7-5. This is a really tough AFC. I mean, I don't have to tell you that. I say it all the time. You have the Houston Texans right now who wouldn't make the playoffs currently. You have the Denver Broncos. You have the Buffalo Bills, who are the 10th seed at 6-6. You have the Raiders, who are 5-7. Cincinnati's at 5-6. If they could get things figured out with Jake Browning, who I don't think has played that bad. They have a defense that could be interesting down the stretch. And then you have the Chargers, who they're 4-7. Tennessee's 4-7. And the Jets are 4-7. Those teams seem likely out of it. But there is a very good chance that a Houston Texans team, a Buffalo Bills team, even a Denver Broncos team can overtake a Browns team in the standings.
That's the scariest part. the Broncos part, Jake. That's the scariest part. The way the Broncos started the season, the way that Russell Wilson, Sean Payton, it was looking abysmal. And they're turning things around, Jake. It's Sean Payton is probably like, hey, I told y'all. So credit to the man, Jake. We got to give credit when credit's due, right? Because we did get on this show, beginning of the year, we were like, Sean Payton this, Sean Payton that. You know, he wasn't our favorite character. And at the moment, he's winning football games. So I think it shows that he is the coach that we thought he was, and Russell Wilson is the player that we thought he is. And so I think that's hats off to them. And, you know, also, too, I know we talked about the Colts a little bit, the Colts, the Texans, and the Broncos and the Raiders for me, Jake. Those are the two scary teams here. Those are like the boogeyman teams in the AFC. Like you said, if the Browns don't get their act together, Jake, those teams can sneak in and cause some damage in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one because, I mean, to make this, it's not going to be easy. But you got the 4th seeded Dolphins right now, if the season ended today, would host the 7-4 Pittsburgh Steelers, who would be the 5 seed. The Ravens obviously have about 2 games on them. And, of course, they will get another crack at the Ravens to end the season. That, who knows, that Week 18 game, that could end up being flexed into the primetime slot. They got a Cardinals team that I think is better than their 2-10 record, but it is in Pittsburgh. I like the Steelers in that one to go back to 8-4 here. And here's the thing. Against Miami has not looked great against top teams. I was not overly impressed with the way they handled things, in Germany against Kansas City. I was not overly impressed when they got blown out by the Bills. I think this is a team
even the Raiders. Even the Raiders, they barely snuck away from the Raiders recently.
And the thing is, and I guess this is a good thing, but it comes with a little bit of, kind of pump the brakes. Since Jalen Ramsey has arrived, this defense has really started to play well. They just lost Jalen Phillips for the year, though. That's an elite level pass rusher that you just don't have anymore.
That Achilles, did you see that play with his cat? That was brutal. My wife and I were watching that play, and she was like, "Wait a minute, I've seen that before with Kevin Durant. Like I've seen that before. That was insane." And it's good to see that he's in better spirits, Jake, because we've been seeing a lot of these career-ending injuries or season-ending injuries, and it's good to see that he's on the other side and he's on the up and up from that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cam, looking at Steelers Dolphins, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. The Steelers don't go away. And they got rid of Matt Canada finally. I know every Steelers fan is singing the praises of that. But the first time with, I believe it was Mike Sullivan as the new offensive coordinator, they go over 400 yards for the first time. And I think it took 56 games for them to do it. Are we seeing a turnaround for the Steelers offense? I mean, Kenny Pickett, probably the best game I think it's the best he's looked in any game of his career. So you have him playing well. Najee Harris is back to 100-yard performance. Jalen Warren looks really good. Deontay Johnson went off. Pat Freiermuth went off. And, I mean, the offensive line is not perfect, but they blocked relatively well. So if they're turning a corner, Cam, I could see them playing spoiler in the playoffs.
Yeah, Mike Tom. I mean, just to think about their coaching staff, Jake. They make the playoffs every year. They had a rough start at the very beginning, right? And so they are the team that we thought they are, essentially, right? We thought their draft was excellent, Jake. When we went into this draft, we were like, man, the Steelers draft, like I know the Eagles had a rock star draft, but the Steelers draft, they were one of my favorite drafts. The storyline with Joey Porter Jr., the way he's shutting things down right now. I think there was a clip with him and Odell Beckham. Like, yeah, I'm locking his old, ass down. And he's doing a good job of that, Jake. He's coming along really well. Patrick Peterson being on the other side of him, I'm sure, is giving him that game to be a great and elite player. But like you said, that team is finally clicking. Jake, at some point I was like, do they have to get another quarterback? You know what I mean? Like, what's going on here? But that goes to show with Matt Canada leaving there, being relieved. I don't want to really say fired and, get rid of this guy because these are people's livelihoods. But when the cook in the kitchen is not proper, you can see what type of recipe that is given out there. And the Steelers did not put out a great performance from the beginning of this year, but now they have a great chef back in the kitchen. Hey, they're cooking, Jake. They're cooking. They're making plays. They're scoring touchdowns. Like you said, over 400 yards in offense, man. Come on. That's how they're supposed to be clicking on every cylinder.
Immediately. And you think about it, they were literally outgained in every game this year until that game.
Insane.
Crazy.
Insane.
So then to wrap it up here in the NFC playoff picture, we got the 4-seeded Falcons, who you believe are going to stay there, taking on the 5-seed Cowboys, which I think the Cowboys, here's the funniest thing, Cam. The Cowboys might be the biggest lock at their 5 seed. I don't think they're going to overtake the Eagles in the NFC East, but I think they're not going anywhere because no one can compete with them in the wild card. They are the top wild card team. They've won enough games at this point. They're 8-3. They're looking at, in my opinion, 9-3. They're the best home team over the last 3 years. They got Seattle, who's reeling right now. I really like the Cowboys tonight. I think they're going to go 9-3. But unfortunately, we could be looking at a 12-win team that doesn't even have, win the division and has to go on the road and play a below 500 team, Cam. I mean, say what you will, and I know you play in the NFC South, but I told you this division should have their auto bid revoked because it is ridiculous, man. We're talking about
give it to somebody from the AFC at this point. I mean, come on, man. Like, y'all are taking up space right now. Y'all just taking up space. Y'all not even contributing to society. You just taking folks' air up at this point.
It's funny because I mean, like, Tampa's 4-7. The New Orleans Saints are 5-6. The Falcons are 5-6. Oh, and by the way, you have the worst team in the league with the Lions who've won, Panthers that have won one game. And it's like in this division, we're still talking about this. I mean, don't you remember of course you remember the 8 broken tackle Marshawn Lynch run? Seattle got into the playoffs at, I think it was 8-8, and they hosted the Saints in the playoffs, and the Saints won like 11 or 12 games that year, and they lost in the first round because they had to go to Seattle come postseason. It's not right. I hope someday they figure it out because, I mean, we're talking about this in 2011, Cam, and it's still an issue.
Yeah, to be honest, Jake, I mean, when it comes to that division, the NFC South, like I said, I played in it for a while. It's been a tough division, right, until Tom Brady got there. But, at this point, I do think it's going to come down to special teams. Like I said, at the end of the day, if you are neck and neck, whose special teams is better, right? Who's going to be able to score more points? And I do think with the Falcons that their special teams unit with Young Hoku was able to put more points on the board. And I think that's going to be their difference maker because things are a little bit too close, right? Desmond Ridder is on, he's off. What does that look like with Carr? He's on and he's off. There's too many unknowns, Jake. And what we do know, come the playoffs, availability is the most important thing. And if I said this in the group chat the other day, right? People are like, hey, Ken, what do you think about the playoffs? Who do you think is this? Who do you think is that? And I said, hey, at the end of the day, whoever is available, come the playoffs is gonna be the team that wins, right? I talked about Brock Purdy last year against the Eagles. Once Brock went down, everything was a wrap for the 49ers. And so at the end of the day, availability is going to be really important. There's a few more games that's going to close out this season. And so these guys have to stay healthy. They have to win out, Jake. At the end of this point, it's win or go home for a lot of these teams. So when I'm looking at, some of the teams at the bottom of this list, in the hunt, we got the Packers, we got the Rams. These guys have to win out. The Texans, Jake, I think they're gonna bump in. I think the Broncos have a good chance to as well. But hey, man, it's playoff football here pretty soon, and it's good to see.
It is playoff football here, and it is good to see. So let's discuss this, okay? We got, now we got to start picking these games. So Eagles, Ravens, they move on to the next round. They'll be in the divisional round. And you and I both believe that's going to stay that way. But then the 49ers taking on the Vikings, hypothetically, if the season ended today, I'd take the 49ers easily in a rematch. That is the last team the Vikings want to see. The Vikings beat them. That was a huge moment in their season because that win against the Niners just basically kicked off this winning streak that put them back in. Don't forget, they were 0-3 to start the season. So I mean, this was not a great team. And then immediately the 49er win kicks off this huge run. And now they're kind of, I don't know what's happening with them, but I take the Niners and then I take the
turnovers,
Chiefs
Jake. There's no Colts. Yeah, and sorry, going back to that Vikings 49ers games, there's no way that the Vikings can win with those turnovers. Joshua Dobbs, we talked about earlier in the segment, but the 49ers defensive line is too good. To allow that, right? They're going to shut all that down. They're going to get out the quarterback after Chase Young. To be honest, Jake, that free agency trade for the 49ers was a big deal before the trade deadline. The 49ers defense is back. They're ready to roll. And to be honest, any team with a quarterback that's turned the football over in the playoffs and even now has no chance. Has no chance against that defense.
No, I agree with you. I will say this, having those two predictions that I just had, I have the Chiefs playing the Colts in my prediction. So I think that is going to stay. I think we are going to see a Chiefs Colts kind of a playoff rematch. Unfortunately, the Colts won't have Andrew Luck, so that's the downside there. But Gardner Minshew, I mean, he's playing decent football, and the defense is playing well, led by your guy Zaire Franklin.
Yeah.
I mean, he's having a fantastic season.
Jake, did he replace Darius Leonard at this point? Because I mean, I'm like, Darius Leonard at one point, all pro linebacker, back to back. He's after that injury. I know that set him back a little bit, but EJ Speed, Zaire Franklin, I feel like the Colts are happy with what they're doing, where the defense is going, where that team is going. And now Darius Leonard's like, hey, I got to figure out a team to go to. I'm sure he'll go to a playoff team, Jake, right? He wants to go get him a chip.
Way, yeah.
But yeah, the Colts defense is clicking, and it's good to see.
Yeah, it's weird because, I think really what it was is kind of similar to Joe Flacco. It's like after he hurt his back, he really wasn't the same. Robert Quinn too, until he had that crazy season with, I think it was the Bears. But yeah, it is weird that like it does seem that way. But but yeah, hopefully he gets back on his feet. I know I think he has a workout with the Eagles and the Cowboys, so he knows what he's doing. He's trying to go to a playoff contender, and I don't blame him.
If the Eagles get him, Jake, that won't be fair. I mean, they got Kevin Byard. Like, come on, dude. How do the rich continue to get richer? That'll be crazy.
Oh, hey, they're all in, man. But so you have the Niners over the Vikings as well?
Yeah, I got the Niners on that one, and I got the Chiefs over the Colts as well.
All right, so we'll move on to the 3 versus 6 seed. The playoffs ended today. We got the Lions taking on Seattle. I'm going to take the Lions because I don't think Seattle's a playoff team. I just don't.
I don't trust Seattle. After losing the Rams twice, I'm like, all right, guys. Like, come on, Pete Carroll. Yeah, I got the Lions.
I got the Lions, although I don't think the Lions will be playing the Seahawks, but we'll get into that. Jaguars and Browns. I'm taking the Jaguars. The Browns, if they had Deshaun Watson, this game could be fascinating, but I would take the Jaguars in this one.
I would take the Browns. I would take the Browns if Deshaun was playing, but he's not. I got the Jags. Yeah. Because the Browns, like you said, that defense, we on a previous show, that defense it seems simple, Jake. It seems simple but effective. And, seeing those guys play is like a blanket almost. It's like, where can I run? Where can I go? But I will say, they're playing the Rams this weekend. If there are holes, if there are gaps, it's hard to stop, and it does get a little porous. So that Browns team could be a lot better if they had their starting quarterback.
I absolutely agree with you. Now the 4 and 5s, I'm going to take the Cowboys over anybody that wins the NFC South. I don't care. I do think they are that good. And then I'm going to go Steelers over Dolphins. I like the Steelers a lot because they are battle tested. They have won these games in which you're like, how did they win this game? The Steelers just get it done. And now, keep in mind, Cam, they were winning those games when they weren't getting offensive play, when they weren't putting up 400 yards. Now they just put up 400 yards the moment they got rid of their OC. So that tells me that they're going to be able to win those games because they're battle tested. They got closers like TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith off the edge. They have, of course, Fitzpatrick as well. Yeah. Fitzpatrick as well. You got a veteran, savvy veteran in Pat Pete. And then, of course, let's not forget about Joey Porter Jr., who right now leads the league in catch percentage. So I'm going to take the Steelers
Cam Hayward.
Dolphins.
I didn't hear Cam Hayward.
Cam Hayward's great.
Yeah. He's the one. No, but TJ Watt, Jake, I agree with you. TJ Watt, game record, defensive player of the year. Max Crosby, I think, is the only one standing in his way, or Myles Garrett. But I like TJ Watt and getting that defensive player of the year there. But got the Dolphins. I was like, however. I got the Dolphins, Jake. Seeing Tyreek Hill, it was that clip, I might have talked about it before, that clip where Tyreek Hill is surrounded by Raiders defenders, and you just see him hit that sonic speed past him. I don't know. Joey Porter Jr.
eliminates tackling angles.
Yeah. Patrick Peterson is good, but I don't know if they can hang with that team. Achane coming back. Hopefully he can get back healthy as well, right? That running back room, Mostert. it's just too dynamic, and I need to see them in the playoffs, Jake. And I can't have them go down against the Steelers. So I got the Dolphins moving on there. And then the Cowboys, like you said, I don't see them losing to anyone in the NFC South. And I do think it's going to be the Falcons with Young Ho Koo taking those guys a little bit further than they thought they would go. So got the Cowboys winning that one as well. But I don't know, Jake, if the Cowboys move past this point. They're good, but they're a little iffy, Jake. I know their offense is moving the ball really well. Michael Parsons is playing football really well, but with the Diggs brother going out on that back end, that's the biggest question mark for me. And I think teams are going to take advantage of that. So I got the Cowboys moving on from the Falcons, but after this, Jake, I don't know how much further they move from here.
Yeah, going to be tough because based on what we just gave, that would be the Eagles taking on the Cowboys and the 49ers taking on the Lions. The 49ers would have home field. I would take the 49ers because I think Jared Goff against that pressure would be an absolute nightmare. It'd be very similar to what we saw against the Packers. I thought they did a great job at exposing how to beat the Lions. I mean, it was all out there. Plus, you can throw on the Lions. I just don't like
if you go to
that matchup.
Super Bowl, Jake. Super Bowl Patriots, Bill Belichick put Sean McVay and he put Jared Goff in a blender. That defense got after their ass, and Jared Goff didn't know what to do, Jake. He was like a deer in the headlights. And so you're right. I think if the 49ers cause that pressure on him, he may not know what to do with the football. And so that's Jared Goff's weakness, right? Is, as he moves forward, if people apply pressure and give him looks that he's not aware of or hasn't seen, that adversity might strike him down.
And I mean, to be fair, we didn't even talk about the Niners offense, which I mean, Christian McCaffrey is the best offensive player in the league, arguably. And I mean, how do you stop him? I don't know. Yeah. The Lions right now, they're not playing their best football. Jared Goff has fallen off a little bit since earlier in the season. I don't think people are really realizing that.
Sam Laporta's been helping him out. Shout out to Sam Laporta for those little quick passes because he's looking good.
So, I'll take the Niners over the Lions. I'm going to take the Eagles over the Cowboys. So we got rematch Eagles in Philly against the 49ers, which we're going to see this week in the NFC. So I believe that's what you're going with as well, I would assume.
Yep, I'm tracking. Yep, I'm tracking that for sure.
Yeah, and then the AFC, we got the Ravens taking on, well, actually, you and I would have it differently because I have the Steelers winning. So the Ravens would play the Steelers and the Chiefs would play the Jaguars in a rematch. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. That would be in Kansas City, though, again. So here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to take the Ravens over the Steelers, and I'm going to take the Chiefs over the Jaguars. I can't trust Trevor Lawrence against a way better Kansas City defense than the last time he faced them. I think he's too turnover prone in big moments, and we've seen that. Yeah. He was able to overcome, but think about this. Last year, they played against the Chargers. I mean, this is a team that is known for falling apart. So, I'm going to take the Chiefs, and I'm going to take the Ravens in that one.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that. The Jaguars, Jake, it's good to see them making the playoffs. I mean, at this point, the way that this team was trending back in the day before Trevor Lawrence got there, it was abysmal. Yes. It wasn't great. And so the fact that they're making the playoffs, that's a whole different thing in itself. I mean, I'm looking at this graphic. Even the Browns themselves, I mean, the Brownies, Jake, like even when I was playing, it was like, oh, we're playing the Browns, like about to run through them. We weren't even good ourselves when I was with the Rams or the Buccaneers. So the fact that they're up here, it's a big deal, Jake. Man. And so I know the Dog Pound fan base, Jake, they feel me on that because it's been a long time coming. I played for the Rams and the Buccaneers. So we were the Bad News Bucks and the Bad News Rams when I was playing. And so when I left, Jake, they won championships, but that's neither here nor there. But when it comes to the Jags, the fact that they're in the playoffs, I think is a big deal. So it's Trevor Lawrence. Hey, make it past the first round, Trevor, and job well done. Go home, go fishing back in Jacksonville. So I think that's a big thing. And then the Chiefs, I mean, Arrowhead Stadium, Taylor Swift's going to be there. I can't see them losing.
That's funny, man. Oh,
Had to do it.
So Ravens Chiefs, I got the Ravens taking down the Chiefs in the AFC title game. I just think that Lamar is going to be too much to handle. I think he's the only thing that can really stop that defense. Because I'll tell you right now, Steve Spagnuolo will never get another head coaching job. And I don't know if that's necessarily fair because I think he's kind of deserved it. I mean, I think he deserves another crack at it. The Rams, I mean, the first year, it wasn't great. The second year with Bradford wasn't bad, right? Then the third year, Bradford has all sorts of issues. Josh McDaniels is the OC. I mean, things didn't go well, but he's been outstanding as a defensive coordinator for Andy Reid's crew. And believe it or not, this is a defensive team. They have Patrick Mahomes, but that is the worst receiving group that we will see in quite some time. I mean, it is really bad. Man.
They can't catch a cold butt naked in Kansas City in the snow, my brother. I mean, it's not looking good over there. It's kind of crazy. Now, Jake, I was in the barbershop the other day talking about it, and going back to the Super Bowl, Buccaneers, Chiefs, right? That side throw that Patrick Mahomes had, I think it was Harbert or somebody, but the ball went right through his hand, standing in the end zone, and hit him right in the face mask and dropped it. And there were many catches that game that the Chiefs should have had to turn the tide of that football game. Patrick Mahomes, whether he's hurt or not, he's delivering the football in probably the most perfect places that receivers aren't even used to. I don't think anybody is. And so they're not catching the football, and it's not good, man. It's kind of frustrating. It's kind of like when you're a kid, it's like, man, Mom, no one could catch the football, so we didn't win. It's like, well, son, did you throw the ball to him? Did you drop the football? It's like, no, all my passes were great. And like the fact that you're saying this about a professional football team, yeah, to men that get paid millions of dollars, that's kind of crazy. So the skill level is drastic between Patrick Mahomes and his receivers, and hopefully they get somebody in there that can catch. Sheesh.
I can't believe we're talking about this. NFL football players. I mean, I'm sure there are receivers that are on their couch right now. Like, I could have caught that, man. Are you kidding me? Like, I mean, the Marquez Valdez-Scantling one too. I mean, and then you have people feeling bad for the guy, but I'm like, he's making $11 million. Like, he's got to catch that ball. Yeah. I mean, that's the game.
Tyreek Hill mentioned it though. It's tough to catch that football in those lights, and so hey, to each his own. But like you said, these guys train in the offseason with these goggles that have dimmed lights. There's things to prepare for that. So to each his own. Those catches, Jake, can get you in the Hall of Fame or not, right? Those are the type of catches that can really separate you from being great. So, hey, man, to each his own.
They're separating the Chiefs from the number 1 seed. That's what we know. But yeah, I'm going to take the Ravens in that one, and then I'm going to take the Eagles over the Niners in the rematch. I think there's a lot of smoke to be had here, and you would probably agree. Deebo Samuel's going to call everybody and their mother trash, and I think he's going to walk into Philly this weekend. I think they're going to lose, and I think they would lose this matchup. I think the Eagles are the better team. I think these are two teams, the Ravens and Eagles, that quite simply just find ways to win. And they win games where you're like, but we had it. How did we lose? Exactly. That's just the way they are. They find ways to win. And so in that sense, you got Jalen Hurts versus Lamar Jackson for my Super Bowl. I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson, the Ravens. I think the Ravens win the Super Bowl. And I'm going to go with OBJ as the Super Bowl MVP because, hey, man, it's only one game. OBJ is going to leave it all out on the field. He might retire after it, but only one game. That's my money on OBJ to be the MVP.
Yeah. Lamar Jackson MVP, Super Bowl champ. I think we write his name in the record books. Like I said, another group chat the other day. Who's better, Lamar or Jalen Hurts? I said I feel like Lamar is a more talented quarterback, but I think Jalen Hurts is in a better situation, and I also think he's an all around better quarterback. But of course, he beat Patrick Mahomes. Well, he didn't beat Patrick Mahomes last year, but he was a better performer versus Patrick Mahomes in that Super Bowl last year. And so I do think Jalen Hurts is the better quarterback, but this year, Lamar Jackson is going to be the better quarterback, and I think Super Bowl MVP.
That would be the easiest Super Bowl for me to watch because I honestly respect them both. I like both guys. Very, very likable quarterbacks there. But yeah, I think that's going to do it. For my quick predictions, Cam, I had number 1 seed Eagles, going into this week. Number 2, Lions. I think the Lions take over the 2 seed. 49ers, 3 seed. The 4 seed goes to the Saints. 5 seed goes to Dallas. 6 seed the Packers. Falcons. And the 7 seed Rams.
Yeah, mine's the same thing. Just switch the Saints and the Falcons because of Young Hoku, the special teamer, who's going to be the catalyst in that team moving forward in the playoffs.
Hey, we'll see tonight. It all starts, guys. You definitely want to check it out on Amazon Prime. It's 8:15 Eastern time. You got the Dallas Cowboys at home, best home team in the league over the last 3 years, taking on Seattle. We'll see what ends up happening, but that's gonna do it. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. You can follow me at JK Bogan. He is Cameron Lynch. You can follow him at Cameron Lynch 50. And this is our show Off the Edge. Thank you to Bleacher Report as always for having us on. And our producer, Will, who's the best. So appreciate you guys, and you guys take care.